Hey, True Believers, Englentine here, and I am with Eric Back Issue Breen.
Good evening.
Alrighty, so we're going to be talking about what I remember to be one of my favorite Superman stories, the Krisis of the Krimson Kryptonite. And I think that's the very first time ever that I've said it properly. What I really don't understand is, did DC know that basically they called a Superman story the Superman the KKK?
They don't abbreviate it when they talk about it.
It reminds me of that Simpson episode.
It's the Krusty Comedy Classic.
Hey, it's great to be back at the Apollo Theater and KKK. That's not good.
So the whole premise of this, is that Mxyl, while Lex Luthor is visiting his dead child's grave, which he found out he was the parent of recently, because it's actually Perry White's kid, he gets hit in the head with a hunk of rock that turns out to be Mr. Mxyl. He's holding it like, alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. It's Mr. Mxyl, and he says, you rub this rock, and I'm going to make it so Superman's your equal, or you're the equal to Superman, is how he sold it. When he rubs the rock, Superman's powers go away. And that is the basis of the first issue, because this is all set up right here. What did you think of this first issue? It's all set up, but what did you think about this one?
Well, yeah, there was so much in just this one book. The original, the first scene at the funeral with Perry and Alice, and then Lex in the background. Even in that scene, his arrogance comes through about if I'd known he was my son, he'd be alive today, and he'd be in line to inherit all of my stuff when I'm gone. And then the way the scene with, and I can't pronounce it. I pronounce it Mxyl because I've never.
I'm like Mxyl. I don't give a
So when Multiplex hits him in the head, and the way he goes, he tells me, he said, this is foreshadowing. He goes, I'm off having fun in another dimension right now, but I didn't want to miss my every 3 month time with my pal Superman. So he says, you want to do this? And he goes, the one rule you absolutely have to follow is you cannot tell him I'm involved under any circumstances. So that's the rule. That will come into play later also. But then there's the next scene where Clark and Lois are at the Binder bookstore.
Yeah.
And they're on, and when Clark goes, like I said, the final resting place of my novel, the remainder rack. And he goes, oh, don't worry, you're in good company. She named some famous writer. I can't remember. He goes, J.L. Byrne. He goes, I actually paid full price for this. So full of in jokes. And the scene where Barrage robs the convenience store, there's a little throwaway line where Maggie is going to confront him, but Turpin can't make it because he's somewhere else.
Yeah, he got injured before.
Yeah, and he goes, and Barrage says, oh, didn't bring your boyfriend Turpin with you. And that was right before we got the reveal for Maggie. So there was all kinds of little hints and things that made this story really cool. And then he obviously wins the fight because Barrage is no match for him. He obviously wins the fight because Barrage is no match for him. But that's when the Luthor's wish takes effect, when he's flying.
Yeah, he's flying him to the police station.
Yeah, and they crash into the water.
Two things I loved about this issue was, one, when Barrage realized that Superman, he's like, well, maybe this isn't actually Superman. Yeah. He actually says, well, screw that, I'm going to kill him. So he decides he's going to drown him. And that's when, of course, Turpin and on the boat drags Barrage out of the water. I love the fact that this is a low-level criminal, but he has enough of a mind to say, this is my chance. And he's right. He could have killed him at that point, but it was really Lex Luthor that saved his life more than anybody else.
Yeah, and before that, he goes, when they're in the air, he goes, if you were anybody else, I'd be trying to escape.
Yeah.
But then, Superman who now is powerless, catches a ride with a cabbie that he'd once helped.
After a thorough beating by Lex Luthor. Well, and let's understand something, because if you look at him, you got Clark and you got Lex Luthor, and this is before they really started with I'm martial artist Lex Luthor, because later in the series, when he gets a better body, you see him, he's always learning how to fight. He's learning, he's more physical than he's ever been. This is heavy set Luthor, and one of the ways he's beating up Superman is he's using the rock. It actually bounces off a table onto Clark's head, and he goes, "Oh, I get it. Mxyl didn't make me as powerful as Superman. He just took Superman's powers away." And he starts beating him in the face and over the head with the rock, with the kryptonite rock. And I got to tell you, my favorite part was when he takes off the glove just so he could use, because his hand got cut off from the energies from his kryptonite ring, the radiation. He just wanted to smack him with his severed hand, with his hand stump. I love that. You want to talk about arrogance? That's pure Lex Luthor.
And then after all that, when Clark goes back to his apartment, Lois is there because he'd been looking for her, and she then confesses to him that her mom is in the hospital dying from something. She'd been sick a couple years ago, and Lex to devise something to prolong her life that is no longer working. So while Lex has, so basically at the end of the story, Lex has absolute control over both Lois and Clark. He just doesn't know, that Clark is one of the two. So it's, again, there's so much packed into just this setup issue that, I said that this, and since we've read the other ones, I mean, the rest of it doesn't, that doesn't let us down from the first one. It's just a great story, just a great beginning to it.
It really is. All right, so we're going to move on to part 2, Adventure Comics. I get the numbers wrong. 462, right?
472.
That's what I said, 472. I told you I got the numbers wrong. Anytime I think of this story, this is the issue that I think of, because it has one of my favorite Superman scenes of all time. I love when heroes have reputations. No member of the Hellfire Club wants to mess with Wolverine anymore, because at this point they would have heard what happened with Wolverine. And this one, it's got a scene where Superman, no powers, talks Mammoth out of a fight, and it's beautiful. But that's later. Let's back up. The story on this one is we open up and Superman is hanging by a rope upside down. Find out is because while he's talking to Dr. Emil Hamilton at Star Labs, or in his own lab actually, he is discovering why, or at least what's going on with him, that not only has he lost his powers, he's legitimately human. He's not Kryptonian, so he can't absorb solar radiation. This will come up later as part of a story. Mammoth is at a jewelry store, plans on stealing a necklace for his sister, and all higgledy-piggledy. Superman decides, I still got to be Superman, takes a rope, a force field belt, a bulletproof vest, and goes after a guy who... Mammoth is at a jewelry store, plans on stealing a necklace for his sister, and all higgledy-piggledy. Superman decides, I still got to be Superman, takes a rope, a force field belt, a bulletproof vest, and goes after a guy who went toe-to-toe with him at full strength. So there you go. That's the basic story. What did you think of this issue?
What I really liked was when he gave him the grappling hook, and he was having trouble working. He goes, how does Batman do this? And then the chimney breaks, and he falls right onto Mammoth.
Yeah, there's no getting around it. Yes. Hi, I'm Superman. Which, of course, you would have to think. But Mammoth, by the way, is stupid. So even though he bumps into Mammoth and doesn't really move him, Mammoth never puts it together that Superman is powerless, because he just isn't that way. He never has been. This isn't like a writer's going, oh, I think I'll write him stupid. His character is that.
And I love when the SCU is about to fire a weapon at him, and it's Superman going, wait.
Yeah,
It's like,
because they expect Superman to be completely A-okay, even though they're going to send
Yeah.
this barrage of ray guns and bullets down on him. So he's like, yeah, they think they're going to knock him out and I'm going to be okay. Uh-oh.
and
So,
yeah, then by some fluke, he's okay. And that's when he makes the stand as
Oh, I
Mammoth
love
is
it.
charging him. And I know this. If you want to take this one, I know this is
yeah, it is. I love this kind of thing because this is, like I said, it's all based on reputation. Now, of course, Superman's got a reputation of being good, but he looks right at him. He says, I'm tired of this. So you break all the bones you can trying to hurt me. And then afterwards, I forget the exact line, but basically he says, afterwards, I'm going to take all my aggression out on you, beat this teetotal snot out. And Mammoth gets scared and he goes, I'm sorry, Superman.
because Mammoth's sorry, and Superman goes, Mammoth's smart.
Yeah. I just love that because just based on knowing how powerful or assuming how powerful Superman is, Mammoth just went, too rich for my blood. And why not? If you didn't know Superman was powerless and Superman got on this I'm fed up with all of it crap, it reminds me of a cartoon I saw where Batman hit the Joker with his motorbike, the come on, from the Dark Knight. And Superman looks at him after he hears the story and says, wait, you hit him with a motorbike? He goes, didn't kill him. If you've got a no killing rule, that leaves open a whole bunch of other things too. Didn't kill him.
Yeah, so Mammoth has been dealt with, but there's still the matter of Superman not having any powers. And Emil Hamilton is stumped, so it's time for plan B, and that's to contact Starman, and goes into a side story in Starman 28 where basically they work on coming up with something that you try to get Superman's powers jump started, because apparently part of Starman's power set involves solar radiation, but it doesn't work. So Starman decides to impersonate Superman to give the illusion that there is one.
I would have liked to have seen them draw Clark Kent with a sunburn. If he's giving him the solar radiation, I would have liked to have seen him. Let's turn it off. He can't take it, and then he's just sunburned from head to toe.
And he even mentions that, and all I got out of it was a sunburn. So they actually used that line.
Yeah, and but they didn't color him like he had a sunburn.
And then he, as Superman, goes to Lex and takes the rock back from the red
Starman
rock. Yeah. So and so that's when we go into the next issue of Superman or Action Comics.
You've got it in front of you, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Hold it up as a I won't have to hold it up as a visual. I won't have to cut to it. There you go.
Okay. Well, it begins with the recap from Starman.
Right.
And and Lex is just beside himself with anger, going, that little so and so lied to me, and he's he got the rock, and that's when Mxyl shows up and and lets him know you dope. I said that's not Superman, and he even knows that it's Starman because I watched him do the whole thing, and I love that look on Lex's face. He goes, that bleep.
I got to tell you, I did think that the third issue was a bit weak, or the weakest of the three. This is where they give him a robotic
skeleton.
Yeah, a robotic suit, an exoskeleton. All throughout this, the story about Metropolis did Superman get injured? Is Superman losing his powers? Whatever. After you see him show up in a robotic suit, it's out. And one of the whole reasons why he was trying to hide the fact that his powers were gone is that they wanted to keep Metropolis safe, because if word spreads that Superman doesn't have any powers, they're afraid that all of Superman's villains are going to go on a manhunt.
Right, but because he even made a comment when Starman continued to impersonate him, he goes, I appreciate what he's doing, but basically it's not a permanent solution.
Yeah.
And at this point, he doesn't know if he's ever getting his powers back. So he knows he has to do something because, as capable as Guardian and Gangbuster are, they need Superman. And if this gives them any kind of Superman,
yeah, at least
that's going to have to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they, that's the strength of that issue. But like I said, yeah, if you have to pick one of the four, it is this one. But
it does play into the themes of the story. The story is what makes the hero. Is it the powers? Is it the suit? Is it the man behind him? The whole point that Clark Kent would throw himself into danger, even though he doesn't have his powers. That's to show that, Clark Kent himself is the hero. Even I think it's in the second issue, he's taking a shower and he mentions to himself, he's thinking to himself, I always thought that Clark Kent turned into Superman, but now, he kind of wants his superpowers back. But that's also,
he says Clark Kent is Superman and Superman needs help. That was right after he cut himself shaving.
Right, which was new. Yeah. But I did like the issue. While that is the weakest issue, I don't actually think there's any weak issues in this book. I think this is a very strong story. The one problem that I would have is going to be in the next book, which I don't think is a bad book at all. I think it's a great book and it's a great ending, but we'll get to it. I'm going to let you open Superman number 50, the end of this particular story.
Well, this one begins, Clark is, starts with him trying to get into Lex's tower, and he gets thrown out. And so he's taking the subway, and something happens on the subway. And one of the things that happens is a giant rat, some kind, and they never explain where it escaped from or anything, but it's obviously bigger than any regular size rat. And again, Clark rolls up his jacket to block his bite, proving again that he, with or without powers, Clark Kent is a hero. But Guardian shows up and saves them. Yes, saves the trainload of people. And see what happened. Then I believe Clark goes. He was on his way to the hospital to visit, to Lois and check on Lois's mom, and they go somewhere to grab a bite, and they get a call from Lex Luthor.
Yeah, but something happens before that.
Take it.
And that is that in an earlier issue, we find out that Clark Kent's mother put a family ring into his shaving kit, and so he's got this ring. And as they sit down for lunch, I guess this is their place because he asks her to marry him right there. But of course, she's got the mother going on. She's got a lot of stuff, so she just says, "Give me a little bit of time." He says, "Of course." And why wouldn't you? You got to know that that she would not be in the right headspace to answer any kind of question like that. And after that, they do get the phone call from Lex Luthor.
He asks if she's ready to consider writing his biography, and Lex goes, "I don't do fiction," and she's rattling off through it, and Clark says, "Give me the phone," and he says, "You've got 10 seconds to make your point." He goes, "Red Kryptonite, I have it, you want it." And so that's how he gets into the building. And that's when, he's trying to make a deal, and Lex, overpowers him again. And that's when Lex blows the deal by confessing. He breaks Mxyzptlk's one rule.
Don't tell him about me.
He told him, he tells me, and so even though, Mxyzptlk has no idea what as he calls a Clark Kent is, he knows that he's broken the deal. So we find out where he is, and it turns out he's in the 616 having fun with the Fantastic Four
in the shape.
And we see we see he's the first time he's a fire hydrant,
but he's purple and he's green, and
the thing is filled with glop, and you see a flame trail,
blue arm
in one of Mr. Fantastic's limbs. And so he freezes them to go deal with, the other problem. And that's when he basically tells Lex that he blew the deal as security is escorting Clark out of the building yet again. And that's when his powers come back.
Mm-hmm. So I got to tell you, my first thought was that's kind of anticlimactic, because there's no big boom. There's no big whatever. And this is where it kind of ended for me. The story's over. The big bad guy, it's kind of like the rest of this book to me is like when you're watching an action film. RoboCop, say. Once Clarence Bodiger was killed, everything else is aftermath. Because Clarence Bodiger was the true evil of the movie. And that's what I kind of felt here. Lex Luthor was the true villain, not Mr. Mxyl, although he was the guy who set everything in motion. So it was very much Superman chasing him through Metropolis. I was like, okay, let's get to the end of this action scene and find out where the story's going afterwards.
Okay, but this was Mr. Mxyl's time to play with Superman, and he wanted to get his money's worth, and so he did. And he basically, the part of the deal was he had to punch out Lex Luthor, so he made that out of some of his DNA. And so when Superman finally, what do you guess was it? What was it when he puts the G on Grossman? Yeah, and then he goes, it's galloping time or whatever it is that he says. And then when Superman finally punches him, he goes, okay, you followed the rules, because remember Superman just told him to get out, and he goes, no, you have to play the game. Now, as far as the Lex Luthor part being anticlimactic,
no, I actually like that because it was done. He was outsmarted by Lex Luthor. Superman was not an active hero in the in this particular one, and you might see that as a detriment. I don't, because this is something where Superman was clueless all the way throughout. There was no last minute saving or anything like that. There was no superhero cliche. He had no idea what was going on all the way up to the end, and he knew who was behind it because there's Mr. Mxyl. Yep. But up to the point where it wasn't Superman that saved the day, it wasn't Clark Kent that saved the day. He didn't trick Lex Luthor into telling him anything. Lex Luthor just did it. So Superman was carried by the plot here. Mm-hmm. And now if this was its own standing story, if this was a movie, maybe I wouldn't have liked it. But I kind of did, because Superman's still basically clueless as to the rules until Mxyl kind of reveals it during the fight that that's what had to happen.
Right. And where I was going with that was, Lex Luthor versus a powered Superman is a mismatch if he's not fully prepared, which he wasn't, because his preparedness was he had taken his powers, and he wasn't prepared for what happened because he had no idea that confessing to Clark Kent, because it kind of reminded me of Superman issue 2 when the computer spits out Superman's Clark Kent, but he refuses to believe it. So it's almost like his hubris gets him again. And then he basically has gotten so weak at this point, when Superman gets back, Lex is passed out. Yeah. So I thought that's what you meant at first by anticlimactic, but I thought that was kind of a fitting end, because, how else could it end? Is Superman pick him up and go like that to him? And then, I said his doctor, said he's coming to, you might want to go do your gloating somewhere else. He goes, I don't gloat over anybody's, poor health or whatever. And
death is, no, I was actually talking about the chase around Metropolis with Gloop.
I thought that was kind of fun, because I like that character, especially when he's that version of him. But then we did leave out, after that, he goes back to his fantastic new friends and unfreezes them, and they just walk away from him. Yep. Which is the same way they got rid of the Impossible Man in Fantastic 4:11. And he basically does it. And when he goes back, he goes, I always forget how I look when I go to these different worlds. Yeah. And that's when he pops into as close to a version of the Impossible Man
as legally possible,
legally allowed. So that was, for longtime readers, that was just, such a treat. Mm-hmm. And then now we're down to the end of the story.
where, of course, Lois Lane gives her answer to the question. Considering where they are now, we know what her answer is, and it was yes. So this was not just the end of this 4-part story. This was the issue where Lois Lane does agree to marry Clark Kent, not Superman, because at this point she has no idea. So that is the end of the book. That's the end of the story. Do you think it holds up? Did you still like it? And
I think that these stories are light years better than almost anything coming out today. The only Superman stories that hold a candle to this at this point would have been the Tomasi and Jurgens Rebirth run, and it's no coincidence that Jurgen wrote one of these stories. He was the writer on one of these books.
Yeah,
with Roger
so
Stern.
As much as we love Tomasi, Jurgens, he might, if we ever did a top 10 writers for Superman, Jurgens would definitely have to be somewhere in that top 10. You would have to assume, yeah.
And if you haven't been around as long as we have, it's hard to impress upon people just how good Superman used to be 3 and then 4 times a month for years, when we can't get one good one now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the difference between what we got back then with these stories and what you get now with Bendis and everything, because this the whole story was talking about how Superman is super when he's even powerless. So
and even in this, the end of the issue 50, we had Perry and his wife couldn't come to a resolution because that had driven, Lex being his biological father had driven a wedge between them that was going to take time to heal. Yeah, Jimmy's mom, I guess was in a coma, and she came out at the end of that. So it was there were a lot of loose ends to tie up that they did, and 2 out of 3 happy endings. But I said it's just I know it's become a cliche at this point, but they don't make comics like this anymore.
Anyway, but thank you guys for listening in, and Eric, thank you very much for helping on the story here. I'm glad you enjoyed it and revisiting the story as well. I'll find something for us to do that you might like here. As always, guys, remember, if you don't mind helping out the channel, click like and share. Get the word about this. We're in the 900s. We're getting close to 1,000. Also, I need the view time, so please share, comment, even if it's just to say hello. And if you don't mind helping out another way, Patreon and Ko-Fi, links are in the description below. I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.